Everyone has a breaking point, a moment where the world feels like it's falling apart and there's no way out. But what if that moment isn't the end? What if it's the beginning of something far greater than we could ever imagine? For Ly Tu Nha, it was the darkest chapter of her life that led to the brightest light she could ever find. She was married once, she loved once, and she lost it all. A broken heart, a shattered dream. But that wasn't the end of her story. Join Ly Tu Nha on her emotional journey as she rises from the ashes of her past, heals her wounds, and learns to love again. But this time, it's different. This time, she's not just looking for love, she's looking for herself. Before the sun rises, Ly Tu Nha is already at work. The world around her is silent, still, as if waiting for her to make the first move. But in this quiet, she finds peace. The rhythm of her daily tasks, the hum of her garden, the soft rustle of the wind grounds her. It's in these moments that she finds the clarity to let go of what was and to embrace what will be. The camera zooms in on her hands, weathered but gentle, as she carefully picks ripe squash from the vines. The golden blossoms surrounding her seem to glow in the early sunlight, their sweet fragrance filling the air. She moves with grace and purpose despite her small frame. Her every motion tells a story of quiet strength. Strength that doesn't need to shout, but simply exists in the calmness of her actions. Her garden of squash has grown, just like her spirit. What was once a place of pain and loss has now become a symbol of renewal. Each squash, each flower is a mark of her resilience, a reflection of the battles she's fought and the peace she's found. The earth she tends to has nurtured not only the plants, but also the woman who once thought she could never bloom again. Cut to a close-up of Ly Tu Nha's face. Her eyes are full of wisdom and tenderness. The bitterness is gone. What remains is the calm strength of someone who has faced the storms and come out the other side. For Ly Tu Nha, every day is not just a fight to survive. It's a chance to thrive. She no longer counts the time by what she's lost, but by what she's gained. Each squash she picks is a reminder of the strength she's discovered within herself. No longer does she measure her life in heartache. Now she measures it in the growth and beauty she's created. The camera follows her as she carries a heavy basket of squash, her movements slow but steady. The quiet beauty of the surrounding landscape, sunlight filtering through the trees, the breeze gently rustling the leaves, mirrors the peace she feels inside. As she walks, the world seems to pause, giving her a moment to savor the fruit of her labor. The soft wind carries the scent of the earth, the warmth of autumn, and with it, a deep sense of tranquility. In this simple moment, Ly Tu Nha knows she has healed. The pain of the past is no longer a weight on her shoulders, but a lesson she has learned from. And now, in this quiet garden, she can finally breathe, finally live free from the shadows of yesterday. With the sound of heavy machinery, the rumble of trucks hauling huge logs into the yard. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a warm golden glow over the landscape. Gaze stood tall in the middle of the yard, his eyes scanning the logs being unloaded. His hands were steady, his focus unwavering as he prepared for the busy day ahead. Kiet mornings begin early, long before the rest of the world is awake. His work is precise and careful. Each log that arrives is not just wood, but part of a larger picture, a project that requires attention, skill, and time. In the first light of day, he works hard, measuring, taking notes, and making sure everything is ready for what's to come. The camera follows Kiet as he carefully walks around the yard, an old notebook in hand. He jots down notes, inspecting each log with precision. The sunlight casts shadows on his face, highlighting the focus in his eyes. His old little hat sits securely on his head as he bends down to inspect each log, his hands moving with ease and skill. Despite the demanding nature of his job, Kiet never complains. He focuses not on the exhaustion or the pressure, but on the results. The burden of responsibility weighs heavily on his shoulders, especially since he was promoted. But it is not the kind of burden that drags him down. It is the kind of burden that pushes him forward, helping him overcome fatigue and constantly strive for perfection. Cut to a quiet moment. Kiet sits at a small table, sipping water. His face softens as he looks into the distance, thinking about the future. A gentle breeze ruffles his shirt, and for a brief moment, the weight of the world seems to be lifted. Even in the midst of chaos, he dreams. He dreams of a brighter future, where his hard work pays off, not just for him, but for those he cares about. As his responsibilities grow, so does his determination to make better life. It's not about the long hours or the exhaustion, it's about the future he's building, one step at a time. The heat is suffocating, but Nam pushes through, determined to finish his task. His hands move mechanically, yet his mind is trapped in a web of questions. The work is no longer enough to distract him. As the sweat trickles down his face, his thoughts drift to Kiet and Tu Nha. What is their relationship really like? He tries to ignore it, to focus on the simple act of working, but the images keep coming, uninvited. The camera shows Nam pausing for a brief moment, wiping the sweat from his brow, his eyes distant. The image of Kiet and Tu Nha, a couple that seems so perfect, yet filled with unknowns, plays over and over in his mind. He doesn't want to think about it. He doesn't want to care. But the questions linger, pulling at him. What if things aren't as they seem? What if there's more to their story than what meets the eye? Nam shakes his head, trying to clear the thoughts, but they remain persistent and haunting. The heat of the day mirrors the heat in his chest, a feeling of discomfort, of unease. He can't escape it. And for the first time, the work doesn't seem enough to numb the pain of uncertainty. The market is alive with activity, a chorus of voices weaving through the streets. Tu Nha's small stall, nestled among the other vendors, is a humble space, yet it holds a quiet pride. She places the basket of squash carefully on the table, the fruit of her morning's labor. Today, like every day, she is determined to make a living, no matter how small the victory. Her face lights up with a soft smile as each person approaches, eager to buy her goods. The camera focuses on Tu Nha's face as she interacts with the customers. Her eyes sparkle with joy. Each sale is not just a transaction, it's a moment of connection, a moment of pride. She's learned to appreciate the little things, to find joy in the simplicity of her work. As the hours pass, her work for the day is done. The last squash is sold, and Tu Nha takes a deep breath, feeling the warmth of accomplishment washes over her. It's not about the money, it's about the independence, the ability to stand on her own 2 feet. And today, she has succeeded. She pauses for a moment, her thoughts shifting. She looked around the market, and then a thought crossed her mind. Her little girl. The smile on her face grows wider as she decides to visit Kiet at the workshop. It's been a while since she and her daughter had spent time there, and she knows Kiet would be happy to see them. After a brief pause, Tu Nha gathers her things and sets off towards the workshop. Her heart feels lighter, as if the weight of her past is slowly being lifted. The path ahead is still uncertain, but for now, she is content. She's found peace in the small victories, the everyday moments that make life worth living. And as she walks, she thinks of Kiet and the life they are building together. A life filled with love, hope, and possibility. For a moment, everything stops. The noise, the work, the exhaustion, it all fades into the background. There, standing at the threshold of the workshop, are the 2 people who mean the most to him. Without hesitation, Kiet steps away from his unfinished task and rushes toward them, his heart lifting with every step. He greets them with a warmth that can't be hidden, the joy of seeing them so tangible in his embrace. Tu Nha smiles back, her eyes sparkling with the same quiet happiness. The little girl runs to Kiet, her laughter filling the air as he lifts her up with ease. Tu Nha has come to deliver the clothes she'd fixed for him, an act of kindness and care that speaks volumes. They exchange a few words of gratitude, but the real conversation begins when Tu Nha sits down beside him, her voice soft but filled with curiosity as she asks about his work. Kiet, in turn, opens up, sharing the small victories and the challenges of the day. As they talk, there's an unspoken understanding between them. Despite the busy day, despite the demands of work and life, this moment is theirs. Time seems to slow as they sit together, caught in the simple joy of each other's company. For Kiet, it's a reminder of why he works so hard, why everything he does is for them. After a moment, Tu Nha stood up and left with her little girl. That moment, though brief, was enough. Their time together was always precious, and Kiet couldn't help but feel a new sense of purpose as he watched them walk away. His thoughts followed them, even as he returned to work, a sense of contentment settling in his chest. As Tu Nha walked away, she smiled softly, knowing that the bond they shared was stronger than ever, regardless of the distance or the demands of everyday life. The future might still be uncertain, but in moments like these, they were reminded that love, simple and sincere, was all they needed to keep going. With every seed she plants, Tu Nha is not just cultivating vegetables, she's cultivating hope. The harsh sun may be unforgiving, but it doesn't stop her. The land is dry, cracked under the weight of the summer heat, yet in her hands it comes alive. Each row of vegetables she tends to is another step forward, another moment of growth, not just in the soil, but in her heart. The camera captures Tu Nha, her small form bent over the rows of plants, her movements fluid, almost meditative. The leaves rustle in the wind, and the smell of the earth fills the air, grounding her in the present. There is a peacefulness in the simplicity of her work, and yet, it's also filled with a quiet strength. The kind of strength that doesn't need to shout or be seen. It just is. Her love for her work, for her garden, is evident in every action, and in her heart, she knows that these small acts of care will shape her future. With every drop of sweat, every aching muscle, she's building more than just a livelihood. She's building a life filled with quiet dignity, one where the work of her hands and the fruits of her labor are enough. As the sun sets on the day, Tu Nha stands back, looking at the garden she's created. The world around her may be chaotic and uncertain, but in this moment she's found peace.